Hi.
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Oh, yeah. Time to get our talk on. Morning Talk with J. Stan McCauley and Mr. Jonathan Small with the maestro in the background, Jay Hogarth. Jonathan, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Stan. It's a pleasure to be back here again.
It's good to see you.
All right. Likewise.
Well, a little early today.
Yeah, a little early, little adjustments today, you know, always having good options when you have Morning Talk Live and two co-hosts, I believe.
Yeah.
So when one, I guess like a backup, like a co-pilot or a backup, whatever you want to call it, you know, fill in a little earlier from Miss Cleo.
You're a full co-host. You're not like the backup.
Right. So if she's not here, I can, like I say, I'll just be a full co-host.
Yeah.
But this is usually her segment, isn't it? This time?
Yeah. She's usually here in the 9 o'clock segment, from 9 to 10.
Yes.
9 to 10. And then Jonathan comes in from 10 to 10, technically 10 to 10:30, 10:45.
About that.
Then he does morning. Then he does one of two shows. All About You or Face to Face. Face to Face is hard-hitting news. All About You is the autobiographical show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I won't be doing All About You because the guests at the last hours, I know, the same person. Though.
Emergency surgery.
Emergency surgery.
But we won't. You know, he'll be here.
He'll be here sometime.
I'm sure. Yeah. But Miss Cleo's not feeling well, so keep her in your prayers. She called this morning. These things happen.
They happen, right?
They happen. Yeah.
Right. Well, like I said, you have a good production. You have good shows for Tuesday now, mostly. You know,
we're scaling it back. We're rolling it back. Yeah.
But see, I'm a believer, and I know, again, you got to be on the same page. I think, you know, production and media, because last week, you know, the conversation with June Archer talking about...
That was a great program.
Great program, yeah.
Great program.
And then them never cross paths. That's the strange thing about it, you know, never cross paths.
Hot Chocolate Soul?
No. You mean that's something that he's a part of?
Hot Chocolate Soul's like an institution. They're down at the Bushnell for years, doing a live jazz music review. It's off the chain.
I just, you know, strange world, you know, maybe I'm not in that circle. I mean, he's a big time entertainer in many different levels.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I just can't recall meeting him physically. I mean, maybe I've seen him, but I don't usually forget people that I meet directly. But again, he was saying a lot of things last week, Stan, about, you know, developing entertainment companies and businesses in Connecticut, the greater Hartford area, and just not happening. I mean, I can't put it no other way. I mean, on a large scale, you know, as far as businesses that the
infrastructure and the business is just isn't here
for entertainment and media.
There's a lot of media titans that live in Connecticut, but there's no industry here per se.
Well, truthfully, WTIC radio, now they're huge for a radio,
right? But that's not the industry. I mean, you know, industry is like it's like having a machine shop compared to Pratt and Whitney. You know, or General Dynamics. Everyone doesn't have the infrastructure and the facilities to create aircraft engines and submarines. They might do things that contribute to it. So there's no production studios, and there's no edit, you know, industry and props industry and technicians that fix cameras and buses that go touring. I mean, the industry. All that it is not just one thing. It's like a web.
Right. And I think sometimes, when I try to challenge you on these things, you'll come back and say, well, the market here is just too small, don't make comparisons to New York, Los Angeles, or Atlanta.
You can't.
You might not remember, though, about a year or 2 years ago, had someone from the Wilmington, North Carolina. I think he was the executive director or the chair, some position he held for the Wilmington, North Carolina film industry. Wilmington is not a big city, probably smaller than Hartford in population-wise, and they have a huge movie film industry. Been working on trying to get someone from that area on just to talk about the film and industry, but it's a huge component.
Wilmington, Delaware.
No, Wilmington, North Carolina.
Oh, Wilmington. Oh, okay.
About 115 to 120,000 population. But they established themselves way back in the 80s.
Tomorrow, at the Connecticut State Legislature, 10 o'clock in the morning at the Legislative Office Building, there will be testimony heard on the film and tax credits for Connecticut. They're trying to get rid of them.
Oh.
This is not indicative of a state that has an industry in the arts, entertainment, and film. So they're not trying to build the industry. There isn't one here, despite many efforts by many people. Jonathan Black. You had Jonathan Black on your show.
Yeah, he was.
All right, he's spearheading this along with former Speaker of the House, Jim Amon. So there are a lot of people involved in film and television here, but there's no industry. There are no production houses, no movie houses, no films being, sound stages. They may shoot a film here and there, but the industry's not here. Like insurance industry,
right?
The insurance industry is here, but it's not in
Nebraska. We had a guest on a couple of weeks ago although things could be sometime there that you may not realize, but it doesn't seem like it's on a large scale. So.
Right, and that's what industry is. Doesn't mean it's not happening. It just ain't no industry.
But see, my argument when I brought up Wilmington, North Carolina is, we're talking about it can be done anywhere if you have the right components coming together, because Wilmington, North Carolina is not a big city. So, and you're not near a big market neither. So you can't say, well, like Stamford, Connecticut, you could say you're in the New York metropolitan area. Inglewood, California, you could say you definitely in the Los Angeles media market. So if Wilmington, North Carolina can, well, again, it's things maybe I'm just not aware of. Even though it's a small city, if you put things together and it's people are all coming together for a viable plan, I guess anything can happen. So if they're trying to eliminate the tax credits in Connecticut for the television and film industry, then there's no realistic belief that it's going to be happening. I mean, you can have Jonathan Black and other people spearheading movements to bring it here in Connecticut, but it just don't seem like people gotta want it bad enough.
Well, they not only just have to want it, there has to be it's got to be driven by something. If is a wonderful word, the power of if, because if the sun stops shining, so I mean anything can be done. If it's like the ultimate, hypothetical. So if the right people got behind it, if there was a demand, yeah, it could happen. But it isn't happening. There is no if here.
Well, as you said before, you could kind of put together, not yourself directly, but if someone wanted to put together some type of entertainment company, and you mentioned about $500,000, you can kind of work with them to kind of establish someone of a media company on a small scale. People might hear $500,000 and say, well, is that small? But in the industry, that's
very small.
Very small.
Pocket money.
Right.
Yeah, 500 to a million, 500,000 to a million. You could do a lot with that, and it could be extremely successful and sustainable. But if you could find someone who wants to do that,
right,
and that wouldn't take a whole lot. See, people have ideas and visions that they don't have the resources to bring about. And so if they don't have the resources, then they have to resort to if.
right.
But, you know.
Well, like you said before, you know, you got to be realistic, and if you're not, if you're trying, like June Archer, I mean, he's already established himself in the entertainment industry. He might be somewhat thinking like Joe Young. He wants to bring things towards entertainment beyond what we have here in Connecticut.
Right.
And Joe Young was talking about working, or the late Norman Lear now, trying to see if he could establish some presence of Norman Lear coming to Connecticut. But I think your approach is work with what you have. If you have electric boat, that's booming. You don't have submarine manufacturing companies on that scale all throughout the country neither. So that is a huge asset that Connecticut has.
Like if Idaho could only build nuclear submarines.
Right.
Of course, they don't have a waterway. You know. So you work with what you have for practical reasons. Things can always develop, and you never know what tomorrow holds, what opportunities come. I have found that when you take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you, then it's a lot easier to move things forward. There's nothing wrong with wants, appetites, passions, and desires. That does not mean that because one has them, somehow everything has to stop and make it happen to what it is you wish could happen.
Right.
And if you really, really want that, then you have to go to where it is. And I think when June was on your program last week, he made mention of that. You have to go to where things can blossom, mature, bear fruit. You can sit in a little coal mining town in the hills of West Virginia and, you know, or you could leave there and go to New York and be very, very successful. But New York's not coming to you.
Right, right.
You got to go to it.
Right.
And I think a lot of times people wish that what they desire to achieve was where they are. But very successful people go to where the opportunities are. If they can't take advantage of the opportunities that are right where they live, then you have to go to where the opportunities are.
And right now, you would say electric boat is a big opportunity.
Electric boat is a great opportunity for some, not for everybody. Everyone doesn't want to do
Exactly.
that kind of work. But, you know, are you looking to be employed? Are you looking to make money? Or are you looking for a long-term career that you find fulfilling and satisfying? If you're looking for a long-term career that you're trying to find, you know, you're looking to be satisfied and feel some sort of, you know, worth and value within yourself and what you contribute to the greater good of the world, then you have to go where those opportunities are. They're not coming to you.
But I think
you have to go there.
Yeah, but I think kind of today, I mean, I don't want to mix things together with other different areas, but, you know, I'm looking, or I would advocate upward mobility. You know, if you're trying to get into like an industry, whether it's the movie industry, you're trying to get into the construction industry, you're trying to get into the water and sewage industry, you know, you got to realize even when you go where it's at, unless it's something like Electric Boat where they're in desperate need for employees and they're willing to train you, and as long as you can probably pass a basic drug test, a background, you know, test or a background report, you don't have a long, extensive criminal record, you stand a very good chance of being employed and even trained from what you've been telling me and what I'm hearing. Now, again, it comes down to, do you really want to do that type of work as a career? Do you want to really be part of building submarines? It's not like you're going to be selective and say, well, I'm going to show up for 3 or 4 hours and then leave. You got to.
What kind of job are you trying to talk about? What are you
well, if you own your own business, sometimes people own their own business. You can kind of set your hours, right?
You can set your hours, but you also have to set your own pace so that you can make enough money to buy insurance, insure your product, protect yourself from other people who are competitors in your business and want to put you out of business or raid your clients. Being self-employed is not a panacea to all things. Most startup companies go under
within 5 years.
So I mean, and being self-employed, that means you have a job, a 9 to 5 that you yourself are moving forward. At the end of the day, you need to be able to have a place to live and food on the table. What can you do to make that happen if you're not independently wealthy?
Yeah.
But you talked about upward mobility. So if you go to Electric Boat, what are the opportunities of you becoming the CEO of General Dynamics? Very, very rare. So what is upward mobility? Becoming a foreman, a general foreman, a superintendent of the area, the shop? What is upward mobility?
Upward mobility, to me, on a basic level, would be doing something better than you're doing now. If you're making minimum wage now and you're stuck in a dead-end job, going to another place to make maybe $1 more with a little bit better
that's upward
perks. It's upward, but that's very slightly upward mobility.
How does one attain that next level in anything that one is doing?
Well, if you are an apprentice, you go through your 4 years or 5 years, and then you expect to become like a journeyman, and then you're licensed. So now that's a bigger step towards upward. You don't want to go as one apprentice for 4 years and then go to another 4 years. I mean, they probably won't even allow you to operate that way anyway. But you don't want to go for 4 years making the same amount of money, doing the same type of work, just to say you are in a different location and you might see a different scenery, but really your circumstances dramatically hasn't really changed. You're renting one place that's so-so. You're going to another area of the country, and the same place you're renting now could be slightly better, could be less, it could be about the same. I think upward mobility, man. I mean, this lady, she's like a financial. Her name is Jill Schlesinger.
Yeah, she's.
Yeah, but you listen to her.
She's a big time star. Yeah.
But she talks on big levels. I mean, I hear interviewing people that has. It makes me feel ashamed sometimes. People have 6 figures, savings accounts.
That's nothing to be ashamed about, John.
But the people she's talking to, they're calling her, asking her for financial advice. And I'm listening to these people saying, well, they have $250,000 set aside for 401k. I mean, I guess you can do it. I mean, I won't say they inherited the money. Maybe they just worked hard and saved.
Worked hard, saved up. They got $250,000 in their 401k, and they're calling her to find out, what they can now. They're calling her radio show. This is not a slight against her. I would think that they have some sort of financial advisor in the flesh that they could go talk to, rather than to try and get nickel and dime free advice in 30 seconds on how to invest their, their retirement savings money. But if that is the case, what kind of lifestyle do they want their retirement money to support? Because people have these fanciful ideas. Well, I'm going to go on cruises around the world, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to still get a new car every year. Well, you need to have you a little bit of bank.
Yeah.
Or do you want to just be one with a state of calm and peace of mind, where you have what you need in order to live a reasonable lifestyle.
Right.
And so depending upon what kind of lifestyle you want, you might need a whole lot of money. Now, if you used to making, $250,000 a year, $300,000 a year, you have real expenses. And people have a very difficult time making the adjustment down to a $50,000 a year lifestyle. But there's nothing wrong with a $50,000 a year lifestyle. I think we get caught up in all these external comparison traps where we see what others have and want that, as opposed to what do I need to make me happy? And then you aim toward that. And if it's $250,000 a year that you're going to be spending, then you have to set your eyes and your goals on what kind of job can I get that makes that kind of money?
Right.
And how much time do I have to get to that position? So you may have to get some extra courses and go to school, get a college degree, own your own plumbing company. I mean, you don't necessarily have to have a degree to make a lot of money, but you definitely need a plan and a vision if you want to get there.
Well, even the building trades, you need some form of additional training. When you get into city government jobs, they become, people say government jobs. Working for the state is very lucrative. You get a good retirement. Well, as far as your retirement and your benefits and your pension.
For now. Those things change. It wasn't always that way, and it won't always be that way.
Okay. Now, you say the private sector, some people say you can make a little bit more in the private sector, but your benefits won't be as good as the state benefits. The state benefits are very excellent in Connecticut. State workers do very well. They may be even getting a raise from what I'm hearing from the governor. I don't know.
But these are political. Those are political decisions.
Okay.
And you're putting a whole lot of hope, faith, and trust in a political apparatus to deliver to you long term. What happens if it collapses? Mm-hmm. What happens if the next administration comes in, supported by legislators who don't believe that you should have that, and they undo the so-called contract that you thought was ironclad?
Right. But isn't the unions very strong in Connecticut towards protecting?
Now there's no guarantee they'll be strong in the future. Mm-hmm. The downtown Hartford and downtown New York and downtown Los Angeles has all these office buildings right now that they can't fill because things changed. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of dependency on other things to make the solid, secured future that some people want happen. I'm a little bit on the old-fashioned side. I like to be in control of my own future as best I can, and I have to depend on all these other things.
Well, if you work as a state employee, you're dependent on what, state government? If you work
taxes and state government.
Yeah.
So if taxes take a nosedive, people move out of your state. Mm-hmm. Where did the tax revenue going to come from? Mm-hmm. So they have to make an adjustment.
Right.
So if the state is paying out if most of the taxes that the state takes in are going to people who are retired and not contributing, mm-hmm. they have already contributed.
Right.
And God bless them for their contribution. I don't look at it as a contribution. They were paid to do a job. Mm-hmm. That's what they get paid for. So now for the next 40 years in retirement with good health care benefits, good everything, but they're not contributing to the now. But the taxpayers in the now are paying taxes. There's not enough money for the schools and a whole lot of other things that are happening. And other things that are happening.
Well, that has to be looked at, because if you're getting state work like a police officer, they come in 18, 20 years old. I believe now you have to work 25 years to be a police
used to be
officer.
20.
Used to be 20. So
see how things change?
Right, 5 years. But still, if you start at 18, 19, 20, mm-hmm. you retire 44, 45, and then you take another job, and then you retire. That's 2 pensions the state is in for
No. It's only one pension the state is in for unless you get another state job.
A state job. Oh, okay.
The only pension is for the state. But let's take the 44-year-old retiree who managed their money pretty good and now lives the life of a self-sufficient, independently wealthy individual. That doesn't mean filthy rich. It means that you're spending less than you take in. Wealth is what you have after you spend. All right? So they managed their 20 years well. They understood, I'm retiring at 44 and I'm not going to work another day in my life after that. All right, so I'm going to save half of my money. Live very frugally on the young side so that when I get to be 44, I can ride all the way until I become room temperature. Now, he's getting a check, but he's not being a police officer. He's not being a firefighter. He's just getting paid.
But can't he go to another town and become another police officer?
Sure, but my point isn't how much money he can make. My point is who's paying him. He's getting paid for services he's not rendering. He's getting paid $60,000, $70,000 a year.
Right.
And you multiply him by what? 1,000? 10,000? Who's paying for all of that? You.
Taxpayer.
The taxpayer. All right. Now, meanwhile, the school in that town doesn't have any revenue for new books or new buildings. The sewer system in that town is collapsing.
Right.
All the infrastructure, which is not designed to last forever, that needs maintenance and repair. The money, we need more money. Well, where's the money? It's gone to all of the folks that are retired. I'm not saying that the retirees shouldn't be able to get whatever deal they hammer out. But the system cannot afford to put out more than it brings in.
But, Stan, I hear most people who want to retire early, they're telling me that they're too young because I guess some companies or some state or some positions, you have to be a certain age to be eligible for your full pension or your full health benefits, that you can retire. Now, the police officer and state jobs like that or city-related jobs like that are a little bit different. They can retire after 25 years and get a full pension, full health benefits, everything. Where the average job company or the average businesses, if you retire at a certain age, many times you're too young to be eligible for all of your benefits. Like if you work, say, for a warehouse company and you start off 18, 20 years old and you work 25 years at that warehouse company, I don't believe you'll be getting the same benefits that the police officer.
No. They probably don't have a retirement package to incentivize you to come work for them as a warehouse worker and then give you a full ride, golden shovel, so to speak. You're gonna get the full health benefits, full, right, air transportation, surgical bay if you get sick overseas, and all of this, and gonna make as much as you were making when you were working for the next. Warehouse workers, a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
Individuals that are willing to go out and be shot at while protecting the neighborhood or the community, those are rare individuals.
Yeah.
And so you incentivize. And the job is stressful, being a police officer or a fireman.
Or a correctional officer.
Or correctional. So you lower the amount of time that you work. So if you work for us for 20 years, you work for us for 25 years, we'll take care of you on the back end. You can retire. You'll get X, Y, and Z until your death. All right. And you only have to work 4 days a week. These are incentives to get people to come and do the work that a lot of people don't want to do. And so in exchange for that, everybody in society says, all right, well, that's a fair price. We need police officers to protect our community. Otherwise, we'll have vigilantes running around. Right? So you have one or the other. Either you want to pay for police, or you have the community do it. One where folk want to feel protected, and if you don't protect them, they'll find a way to do so. What would happen if we didn't have fire department?
Right.
City burned down to the ground. You want to run out there with a bucket and water? So you're willing to pay them. There aren't a whole lot of these people. And then you have the actuarial people who will come along and they'll do the math and the long-term projections. And they say, well, people that go through that much stress don't normally live more than 10 years after they retire. So they really not going to get that much. They think they are, but they ain't, because they're not going to be alive. Yeah. So we can afford to make that offer, because in the end, it's not going to really work out. It can cost us this much. Those are the types of things that happen.
Yeah, I think they call them hazardous duty occupations, correctional officers, firefighters.
High stress. People, stress kills you.
Right. So but that's one reason why they gave them that 20 to 25 year window, because they realize it's a hazardous duty type of job. You may not make it even 20 to 25 years.
Right. So you can't compare what they do to what a warehouse worker does.
No, but I mean, they are, again, the whole argument, there's companies like working for the state. And again, even the state, because my sister works for the state, the veterans home. And you have to, I guess, put in, even if you start young and you're trying to retire, you still got to be a certain age for most occupations to be eligible for retirement.
Absolutely.
And you agree with that? You think that's a good rule?
I think it's a great rule. You shouldn't be able to come here, work a year, and then retire and be paid for the rest of your life.
No, not a year, but I mean, like, if you start off and you've been working for a company 20 to 25 years, and you can do an early retirement, you just won't get your full max benefits. Your full rate pay. You'll get like a percentage of it, maybe 2/3 of it, but you won't get the full.
And most people aren't eligible for retirement until they're like 55.
That's what I'm saying, 55, right? At least
in that area.
In that area.
Companies will incentivize an early retirement because they have staff that they need to reduce. Mm-hmm. So, you want to get rid of some of the heavier, higher salary people. Mm. So if you give them a golden handshake, so to speak, we'll give you X, Y, and Z amount of money if you take an early retirement. Mm-hmm. So they kind of like buy you out. That opens up the door for newer people to come in, new ideas, new vision. You want to break up some of that old way of thinking and some of the things that are holding the company back, short of just getting rid of them. Mm-hmm.
But again, I mean, I think most companies, try to treat their employees fair. You hear a lot of criticism. The companies don't care about us; they just using us. We're a dime a dozen, and then you get into unions and non-unions, the differences between the two. But I think someone like and we talk about this most times staying off of the air, not really on the air, but with Dr. Claude Anderson's whole vision approach about, building industries and more building businesses to develop industries, and the racial wealth disparities, sometimes you overlook reality. The black dollar goes in and out of our community within 6 hours. So we're, by force, sometimes you have to go outside of your community to get certain products and goods and services that you just can't find. I have to do it because I can't find certain things that I'm looking for in the so-called inner cities or black community, whatever you want to call it. So he's still preaching the same thing he's been preaching for the past 20 to 30 years. We're not building an economic base in our inner cities the way it needs to be. Small little mom and pop shops are fine, but building the type of business structure where we can really be more, like you say, be more in control, where we're not reliant on someone to have to go to a job for. It's easier said than done, Stan. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is an easy thing to fix, but our dollars are not really working for ourselves. I mean, we have the group economic dollars in place. It's just not coming together unified to do anything for the whole community.
There has to first be the political will to make the kind of change you're talking about, and it doesn't exist.
Right.
So it's not going to happen. And until the political will changes, or the political winds change, or the community rises up and makes the change, it just isn't going to happen. What needs to be is in the if category. But if is there because it's not being done.
Yeah. Other than, and then even you got to be careful when I say this, other than the so-called black churches where they know how to utilize their money.
That's not the
better.
church's role. The black churches are not in the business of making industry in the inner city or economic wealth in the end. That's not what they exist
No,
for.
but they do a good form of group economics with their money within the congregation. At least First Cathedral and other mega churches, they do a very excellent job at keeping their money.
I think from the casual observer on the outside, I can understand how one would come to that conclusion, but that is not the case. What you have in a church is a group of individuals who have like-minded beliefs, who know one another, and they become a community unto themselves. There's churches large enough to have enough members that provide services that each other need. So they call upon one another.
Right.
Because I know Bobby, so let me call Bobby to see if he can come over and fix my computer. So-and-so's a mechanic. Let me go call so-and-so, see if he can fix my car. What's her name has a barber shop. What's her name has a beauty salon. What's his name is a doctor, so we're going to go to him. It's not like there's some grand plan to make sure that the money stays within the church 7 times. It is a community with shared interests and likes, and those people support each other. It turns into that, but it's not like someone sat down and designed this to be a particular way. And I think that's what's lost. They are sharing each other's talents and gifts with each other. And this is something that you have not only with churches, but with lodges and any group that's big enough to have those shared resources and talents. The reason they have a common thread is because of their belief in what the church offers.
Yeah.
And that's what pulls them together, not being an economic engine. What pulls them together is their common belief in Jesus.
So again, Dr. Claude, not to switch off of religion, but Dr. Claude Anderson's vision is not durable. Because group economics, I mean, he talks about economics more than politics. You can just buy politics. Don't even get caught up into politics. You see it differently. The bridge plan that he outlined, economics, politics, media, the court systems, and one other area he mentioned in his 5-point plan. You always said you would start off with the political system first. If you was going to build a community, build a city, you would start off, and by running for mayor, that kind of gives me the belief that you feel strongly about the political system. You would rather start off, or recommend starting off for you, with the politics, with the political system.
I think Dr. Claude Anderson starts off with the politics too. He presupposes he can buy his politicians. That's all.
Yeah, but everything he talks about is about economics, though. Even
ultimately, and at the end, right? But you got to have a you have to have a foundation upon which you spring off of. Clearly, economics may be his end game, but if you're doing this in a community that doesn't have any wealth or money, you can't start there. That may be where you want to wind up.
Yeah.
So how are you going to start building wealth when ain't nobody got nothing? For the ebonically challenged.
We don't have nothing, but we do spend whatever little bit of money. See, again, you got to understand, I'm not an economist. You got to still understand what group economics can do. You don't have a lot of money as one individual. But when you collaborate, all of the $1, the $5 that one individual has.
Yeah, but that's theory. That's the wonderful world of if. We know this. The problem isn't that no one knows this. The problem is, where's this group and how do you get them to do it?
Yeah.
Or you could have that conversation. You could have Dr. Claude Anderson's conversation for the next 120 years. Where's the fruit?
Well, the Nation of Islam, are they more realistic example. I mean, they preach self, do for yourself.
The Nation of Islam, under the leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, is in the same realm as what I was talking about with the church. Mm-hmm. You have a common group of like-minded believers or like-minded individuals who share talents and resources with one another because they know each other.
Right.
You can pick any group.
So it sounds like the bigger problem in the inner city poor communities is people are not collectively thinking they may be collectively thinking on the wrong scale of the approach. We need to just be consumers, spend our money as quickly as we get it.
No, and I think once again that's a casual observation of what's happening. But people that are in the inner city communities that you described are people who are poor. Mm. They don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they are trapped in the whirlpool or quicksand of poverty.
Right.
So anytime anyone is stuck in quicksand, if they all collectively work together, they could all get out. Mm. But when you're stuck in quicksand, you're not thinking about the guy over there.
Yeah.
You're thinking about yourself.
Right.
If I don't do something, I'm going to go under and I'm going to suffocate and die. So how do I get out of here? Now you're in full survival mode.
Yeah.
And so if you're in survival mode, you don't think about anybody but yourself. That's not a bad thing. You got to preserve yourself. Otherwise, what benefit is there? So if you have people who are disconnected and trying to survive, they're not going to have group think. You're not going to have group economics. You're not going to have group cooperation. You're not going to have group trust. You don't have time to be trusting anybody. You're trying to survive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand.
You're trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a group of people who, one and first and foremost, they come together. They got each other's back.
Right.
You need to borrow some money, they got you. They're not hounding you for when you gonna pay me back. Because they really don't. They do care about the money, but they didn't give you the money because they're looking for a return on investment. You had a need, and they were happy to supply it.
Right, but I agree with everything you said. But even when you had people like the late Dr. Kuba Assegai, who, again, he's from England. He's bringing a whole different way of how he was brought up and raised comparable to the United States. And he caught, and again, his approach on how he came across can easily make people feel resistance against you. But he was totally dissatisfied. Remember, he said he had established a bookstore on Albany Avenue, not for a profit. He wasn't making any money with the bookstore. He just wanted to establish knowledge and give people the information that he felt they would need. And he had little workshops every now and then. Mm-hmm. We've outgrown those stages. But he caught a tremendous amount of resistance. Dr. Claude Anderson, I don't know if his catch is getting resistance, because people seem to praise his knowledge. I mean, if you listen to him towards economics, he knows what he's talking about.
Absolutely.
He's not just...
We're not talking about how much he knows. We're not talking about how smart he is, or how eloquent he is in the delivery of his wisdom to the masses. Mm-hmm. How effective is it?
Right.
In resolving the issues of the people that you're talking about relative to what he has been able to do and how he did what he did.
Right.
Works where he was, under his vision, under his leadership, under his tutelage. You have this is how he did it. Now, maybe it'll work for you, maybe it won't. But the one thing that's necessary is the same mindset in the people that he has been successful with has to be in the people that you are. So if Dr. Assegai has a bookstore offering wisdom and knowledge, but nobody wants to go there and read it. Mm-hmm. We got libraries in every city in America.
Yeah.
there should be no ignorant people in any city. The library's free.
Well, I used the bookstore as a small example. There was a lot of things that Dr. Asagai was advocating beyond just the bookstore for knowledge. I mean, the resistance that he ran across. I mean, he said many times, get rid of the school bus systems for the kids. Get them prepared to learn how to get to school like you would have to when you become of age and have to get to a job. He wanted to establish a different level of food in the cafeteria. I'm just giving many examples.
Those are. I understand what you're saying and where you're going, and all of those are great examples. The problem is, headspace here does not equal headspace in those 25 people who set policy and are making a fortune off of the way the system is now.
Right.
You're saying what they need to do, and they're telling you what they're gonna do. There's a big difference between the person that says, well, what y'all need to do, and the person who's actually doing something.
Right. But again, and he's not around anymore, and I don't know who's really taking his place. Sometimes
no one can take Dr.
Asagai.
Dr. Asagai, Kuba Asagai's place.
Right. But he would say one thing that sometimes people, even now when I'm hearing people talking about certain issues of gun violence and patrolling the streets, armed citizens, he would always say, you can't get out of a crisis with the same mentality that got you in the crisis. So if you're trying to escape and get out of a crisis, you have to do something in a way that's totally different that got you into the crisis. If you think doing something that has been proven not to work and has gotten you in a worse or a bad situation is going to now be able, like the same people he would say that gave you poison, you're looking for them to give you medicine. So if you're looking for the public school systems to fix the educational system, the Board of Education, they get paid good money. That's their job. I understand that.
The Board of Education members do not get paid.
Okay. But I'm being like the superintendent and people.
Right. The school, the system, yes.
Right.
Those people are compensated for the work that they do.
For the work they do. And, you're a person that believes in self-education. I mean, I think someone had to talk to you one time to convince you not to homeschool your children because it wasn't really I don't know what the whole ins and outs, but I know you mentioned that one time to me that you were thinking one time about not even sending your children to the school system, that you would be the school teacher or you would just homeschool them. And then somebody talked to you and convinced you that that's not the best approach. So you're open-minded. And that's how the community and people got to be. You can't be closed-minded. It's either some people on one side, and I know some people concerned with, armed citizens now patrolling certain areas of the street that they shouldn't be giving guns to do something. They're coming back, Bishop Dexter Burke, and saying, we've been trying this approach, and I don't want to classify people on a negative level when I say this, the marching, what the Mothers United Against Violence and other organizations have been doing, and it really hasn't worked towards really stopping or preventing gun violence. Their method is, yes, to provide aid to the victims and the family and bring awareness to what's going on. But it hasn't been proven to reduce or prevent certain levels of gun violence. So now Bishop Dexter Burke is coming up with a different strategy that this is a better way to provide public safety and prevention towards crime and gun violence and other nuisance illegal activities, and they're getting a lot of resistance. So again, some people would say do things the same way that they've been doing. Let the police officers or let the police department be the ones that decides how we're going to protect our citizens, and they're showing you that armed citizens can be a way towards protecting and providing safety for their citizens. I kind of got mixed. I mean, I'm not against what they're doing, and I don't know everything about it to say I'm totally for it. But one thing I will have to admit is gun violence and a lot of illegal, and they claiming lately that they've seen a reduction on some of the streets that they've been patrolling. So you're trying to do something a little bit different out of the box, and then some people think it's not the right approach. At some point, can you do both at the same time? I mean, can these different organizations work together?
Sure.
They can?
Absolutely. If they decide to. Mm-hmm. You know, they have to, there has to be a level of mutual respect for what each other does. Mm-hmm. You know, Howard K. Hill provides funeral services.
Right.
He's not in the death prevention business. Mm-hmm. He is in the consoling and comforting business of those who have lost loved ones.
Right.
There is a place for that. But
right.
because he does that doesn't mean we should shut down all the hospitals. Mm-hmm. Someone has to be in the life preservation business.
Right.
So that he doesn't have as many customers as he would have otherwise. So everyone works together. Everyone provides a service. I've been on corners praying for people. Mm-hmm. I've done street evangelism. I've restrained people from jumping off of bridges. You know, all these kinds of things. Everybody does certain things and they do certain things certain ways. You know, the whole body works together. If everybody were an eye, where would be the hearing? Everyone's not an ear. Everyone's not an eye. So we need the community to be policed. Now, a community is self-policing, it's self-educating, and it is self-sustaining. Mm-hmm. If you don't police your community, someone else will.
Right.
Period. All right. So the fact of the matter is that Glastonbury, Simsbury, Marlborough, they have citizens patrolling. They've just been deputized and are in police cars. Mm-hmm. Make no mistake about it. You can't go out there and become a police officer, but they can come here and become a police officer. Mm-hmm. And so people can't have it both ways. They can't talk about how they want to defund the police because the police aren't being helpful in communities, that they go into communities and escalate things. And then when the community fills in the gap, be against that. So somewhere, somehow, some way, people have to come to a place where they understand where the other's coming from and then work together to create a community approach. And by and one also has to define community, because community is different than the residents that live somewhere.
Yeah, that's a neighborhood.
Neighborhood, right? Right. Like I'm a resident on this street.
Right.
Now, folks 20 and 30 blocks from here don't live on my street. Mm-hmm. They don't have a bullet hole in their wall like I do.
Yeah.
All right.
It can happen.
They don't have blood on their railing from people coming over trying to get up here after they've been shot.
Oh boy.
All right. There's a guy was shot up. You know where all the people that have been shot on my street.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm very familiar with what goes on my street.
Right.
All right. Up at the corner, there's a wholesale drug market.
Right.
Sergeant Austin told me, Stan, don't go up there and talk to them. Let us do that. There's some dangerous people up there that you may think you could go and talk to them.
Yeah.
So I let him do his job.
Right.
And then I can do mine. But someone has to do it. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? So we all work together as a community now. So how can we integrate communities that want to do something that is new, bold, and challenging?
Well, first of all, let's get back to what Sergeant Austin just told you. If you start to take a gun And I think the late Reverend Wyatt.
I wasn't going to take a gun.
Yeah, but you're going to go confront drug dealers about selling drugs on the particular corner. Mm-hmm. Now, hopefully, it hasn't spread to being in front of your house.
It did at one point, but I went out and told him because I was running for mayor at the time. And so I went out and I said, "You see that sign?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "That's not there because I support him. Mm-hmm. It's there because I am him. Mm-hmm. So how am I going to look running for mayor and you standing in front of my house handing product to people that pull up? That's not going to work here." Mm-hmm. I said, "So we have to come to some sort of compromise. See that black car up the street? Yeah. Don't come below the car and we won't have a problem. Are we cool?" Mm. He said, I could work with that.
All right.
And then that was the last of it.
But every drug dealer might not agree with those terms, too. I mean, that particular drug dealer agreed to what you said. Illegal drug dealers don't want to be confronted by the police. They don't want
and they don't like attention.
Attention, exactly. So if you bring a lot of...
Because they are breaking the law. Mm. What they do is illegal.
Right. And you can't justify that by any circumstance.
There is no justification. Mm-hmm.
Well, again, I mean, this whole approach of armed citizens, it might be drawing a lot of attention. I know a lot of people might be dissatisfied with their approach. Some people feel their approach is very helpful, it's very necessary. That might be a small percentage of people who think on the latter part. But at some point, a lot of different combination of factors in your areas, whatever you want to call it, neighborhoods, hoods, whatever, hasn't really been dramatically resolved. Some areas have been resolved, like dilapidated public housing projects no longer really exist on a large scale towards, tearing them down, building up new housing. And some of your areas of just people, whenever the weather gets warm, a lot of idling, loitering, nuisance level issues. Doing nothing is not breaking the law. It might not be what you could look at as a productive citizen, but at some point, examine yourself. This is how people are really living. How are these people able to generate any income? How are these people are able to really function? If you see people at 2 or 3 o'clock at nighttime sleeping on bus stops, what is it really saying for your society? So you always come back, you have a society gripped in poverty, and this is what you get when
certain sectors of the society are gripped in poverty. And then you throw in a lot of mental illness issues, substance abuse issues. It's a bad combination for a good outlook or a good outcome. And I don't know if this is the area that Bishop Dexter Burke is starting to move into, but I think at some point maybe that might be the next step. You confront the hardened criminals, get rid of that hardened element, and then you start to work with the other issues and the other areas of the people that's unemployed, underemployed, got no fixed address. I don't think he has to be all things to all people. There needs to be balance in the discussion. Mm-hmm. He no more has to be all things to all people than Blue Hill Civic has to be all things to all people. People do what they do. What we don't have are people working together for a common goal. Your cooperative economics.
Yeah.
The cooperative societal solution where everyone is lifting their part of the long board as we walk this thing down the street.
Right.
Everyone can't be on one end. You got to be all the way around. Mm-hmm. All right. So, why is this issue of crime and drugs in our community?
Yeah.
And not somewhere else? Mm-hmm. So, we have a war on crime, a war on drugs, and a war on poverty.
Right.
American foreign policy as it relates to war is containment.
Yeah.
And profiting off of said containment. So if we have drug sales in the poor communities and elected officials are saying, well, we don't want citizens walking around taking the law into their own hands. Well, we have criminals walking around taking the law in their own hands. So so I'll just play devil's advocate here for a second. So what could happen if we have citizens letting other citizens in the community know that you're not going to do that here no more?
Right.
It could mean that the criminal element in that community will go where? Somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're not containing that.
Right.
Because the illegal drug trade not only makes money for the drug dealer, but it makes money for a whole lot of other people who live in other communities.
Right.
And once you start disrupting that, people get antsy.
Yeah.
All right. So if you can't contain that in that community, then it'll spill out somewhere else. So now you have the criminal element going, well, what if they went to Simsbury and did direct sales with the folk who come here to buy the drugs?
Mm.
Or to Glastonbury, or to Winstead, or wherever else if folk are coming into Hartford to buy their drugs.
Right.
Now, it's interesting that there can be a thriving drugs, illegal sale of narcotics in the hood.
Yeah.
But the hood can't get quality food.
Right.
All right, so people need to peel back some of the onion and look a little bit deeper and see who's managing what. So, if we know who the drug dealers are, if we know who's coming into the community buying drugs and then leaving, and that's allowed to happen, if we stop that or cut it off, maybe the people in the community could be less in quicksand and start recognizing the beauty that they have in their community and start to rely on one another for safety.
Yeah.
Then you have the seeds in the ground to start to have the community change for the positive. You see, but that is counterproductive to the political aspirations of some in the long-term viability of illegal narcotics being sold. Make no mistake about it, somebody's making a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, you always said there's no justification. I mean, you're not in favor of the drug policy, so we need to put that aside, that legalization of medicalization, decriminalization, other than, well, legalization has happened in Connecticut.
Right. You
Marijuana.
Go up to McDonald's on Albany Avenue, and you'll see the unintended consequences of legalization of marijuana.
Yes.
And what it's doing to the young people.
Mm-hmm. And it's spreading in different areas. Fentanyl is a very serious problem that's being mixed with a lot of these drugs. So I guess you can't really separate the drug problem from the crime problem, because at some point illegal drug activity is going to cause crime. And I guess what had it for when I'm listening from Bishop Dexter Burke was when the two people got killed on Garden Street. I mean, I think he had even mentioned that was the last straw for him, that he just couldn't deal with this anymore. Mm-hmm. And knowing you the way I think I know you, and you mentioned the bullet, if that bullet would have caused some damage to one member of your family, I think you're going to do something a little bit differently now than your approach. I mean, maybe you might still listen to Sergeant Austin, but you're definitely going to want to see some changes done immediately. And I'm not really putting you in a hard position to say, trying to put you on the spot, because you have ran for mayor. You said you confronted the drug dealer in front of your house. So you've taken some real bold stance. I mean, politically, and just as a everyday citizen. I mean, and I think obviously what Sergeant Austin, whoever this Austin, told you makes sense, that yes, let the law, because there's also insurance reasons too. I mean, you got people with armed guns out there. What is the insurance? I see a police officer, isn't they covered? Isn't this some type of insurance that you have?
That I've heard people.
You've heard people say?
I've heard people put forth the argument you're putting forth. That argument for Stan. I'm just one guy. That argument doesn't move me. I mean, that's on them. Do they have insurance on their car? How many people driving around Harvard don't have car insurance? But nobody's saying, well, they could get in an accident and hurt themselves and this, that. That's the wonderful world of if. If could be many things. But if.
But it's against the law to drive without car insurance.
It's against the law to drive an unregistered motor vehicle.
Right.
I mean, come on. We are in Hartford where that goes on.
It goes on heavy.
Heavy.
That's, again, these inner city issues that I don't know if you can just eradicate just like that. People driving unregistered cars, people hitting into people.
But in terms of them getting caught or getting in an accident, that is something that's on them. I'm not going to spend time worrying about what happens if, to them. That's something they should be aware of when they when they decide that this is what they want to do.
Right. Well, it's something, it's not totally new.
None of this is new.
It's new, yeah. I can't recall last when I seen armed citizens. I know
last year during the campaign they did something. And this is not the first. This is not new for, Cornell. He's been doing these things for quite some time.
Yeah, and I don't think it's. The media is kind of making it up to be like it's a large. I don't think it's a large group. It's a group of a presence of people, but I don't know if it's a large presence as people might be under the impression that it is. How many people that we're talking about? 40, 50 at the most. I
don't think that the issue is that there are people in large numbers. I think that the issue is that the individuals involved are people of purpose. Mm-hmm. And as such, they're training people. Mm-hmm. And now you have the potential of this getting out of hand.
Right.
And so the powers that be are trying to nip it in the bud before it becomes something greater. Mm-hmm. The potential for something to go wrong is always present. Mm-hmm. But the potential for something to be good is also present.
Right.
So, you have to do something if anything good is going to come of it. So there will be naysayers to every venture, no matter what it is. Right. There's somebody running for office. Well, if they get elected, it's going to be the end of the world. It's always. I don't care what you do. Jesus couldn't do good.
Right.
They wanted him killed. So I don't care how noble and good you are. There are going to be people against you. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter what it is you're doing. There's always going to be someone who's for and someone who's against. Whatever it is. There's people who believe that drugs being sold on the corner not a bad thing. It's economics. Yeah, I've heard those arguments.
Yeah, that has to be a small percentage, but because most time illegal drug activity is not bringing nothing positive.
Brings revenue into many homes.
To homes, and that's a bad sign that you're relying on the illegal drug trade.
There's a whole lot of folk who are being supported by, individuals out on the block.
Yeah.
A whole lot of people.
Right. So now the traditional way of society should be generating money through employment or business or legal entrepreneurship is not sustainable in many homes. So now the illegal drug trade or some underground illegal activity is the replacement side. It's the way it could. I guess it could make more money than a typical 9-to-5 job, and I would even question how that's changed too over the years. So I've heard that some people would say you're better off working at McDonald's than you would be standing on a street corner selling drugs.
Right, because you could live.
Yeah.
Burger King builds a new restaurant in order to challenge McDonald's. Mm-hmm. If you selling drugs on the street corner, your competition's going to drive by and shoot you.
Right.
It's a dangerous business.
Right. So that reason alone would stand justifiable that it's not a good thing in our society. Now, again, the drug policies, what efficacy and other think tank organizations said, you have to remove the money out of illegal drugs. You know, you don't want to just replace the drug market or the drug dealer from one person to another. But that's legislation, that's policies. Those are not easy things to pass through Congress. So the next thing, I think we mentioned last week or so ago, dry up the whole drug area where people can sell drugs. You know, make it not feasible for you to sell drugs in your society, in your community. But again, all different sound bites, all different ideas. You know, I think at the end of the day, and I think I seen it last week when the weather was warm, because you have some guy now, he does postings online, Connecticut Raw, showing a lot of graphic images that exist in the neighborhoods or the hoods. And again, when you have a group of people who, for whatever reason, don't have the resources, don't have the whereabouts to go upward mobility and be productive and sustainable, then a subculture, whatever you want to call it, of people just socializing, doing something to get through the day, feeling good, getting some satisfaction, is what you have, more than a developed society where you, like you mentioned, people can have that trust. Now we can move things to the next level. We can start to build things. If I came to you, Stan, and said, okay, let's build a media company, and it takes $500,000, I could find people now that can come up with that kind of money. But unrealistically, I don't have the networking leverage. I don't have the trust factor with a group of people to say we can work towards coming up with $500,000 or $1 million to build a company that can do something in the media industry that could be very valuable, having media information, having media dialogues, communications. You know, even if that's on a small scale, it's a presence that I don't think we really even have today. You know, we don't have the luxury. What is WDRC is a conservative radio station that is pretty solid. They generate a good revenue. They've been there for a long time. Urban America, what type of AM radio format do we have here? WKND, WQTQ, that's the schools. I guess you see where I'm going at. You know, people have to rely on WDRC, WTIC to get certain messages. You want to bring political information together.
We have what we have. Let me ask the artificial intelligence a question. Alexa, what is the African American population of Connecticut?
According to the U.S. Census, the African American population in Connecticut in 2017 was 432,616, which was 12% of the state's total population.
12%.
12%.
Mm-hmm.
So 12% of the population scattered throughout the state.
Right, right.
There are a couple of small radio outfits and concerns that do distribute news, but I would say that the Asian population is probably less than 12%.
Right.
And they communicate with one another.
Right. So you don't need radio? You don't think you need
radio's nice to have, but if the need is there, then someone needs to come up with it. We need to come up with it. If it's important, then make it important enough to support it.
Right.
And keep it viable and keep it going. If you want to see who support a community is what? Self-sustaining. If you want to see who supports black voices, pick up any black publication, newspaper, anything like that, and see whose ads are in it.
Right.
The people who fund it control.
Right.
Period. Because if it becomes revenue based, then you need to eat. And if you need to eat, you need ads. And if you need those ads, no one's going to bite the hand that feeds it.
Right.
This is the vicious circle that happens when, particularly when politicians put ads in things. Because no one's going to go after them in a critical way when they're being underwritten by said political entities. So if the community wants that, then the community has to support it. If they don't support it, they could talk all they want. We live in the land of if because we don't want to actually do.
Right.
And when we do stuff, things change.
Right.
So it's time to move from if, woulda, shoulda, coulda, and be involved.
Yeah, but getting $500,000, I mean, that's still a process that you have to come up with. I mean, if you say this is $500,000 that is needed to get...
I don't have to come up with $500,000.
No, but I mean the group of investors and the people that's working towards the so-called need, that's the amount of money that it would require to get a certain media company really established.
Well, a media operation.
A media
I guess
operation.
you could call it a company, but company invokes kind of like a Channel 3 to me.
Okay.
But some sort of means by which to get messages and information. Now, and that's not to say that the community doesn't have that. It just doesn't have it on a broad scale like what you're talking about. But if that's what people want to start, then they need to put their money where they have to come up with the money. There's plenty of money. It's just people don't want to spend it all.
Oh, don't want to spend it all, yeah. Right.
Money is never an issue. Ever, 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 ever. People make it into an issue. It's not an issue. The issue is what are you willing to spend the money on?
Right, right. Well, again, somebody said a long time ago, people move on what they're passionate about. Someone said they're passionate, told me he's passionate about business, so that's what he moves on. You're passionate about, you mentioned one time before, a message, you do not just message, but you like to help people achieve what they're looking to do. And through media and because you've been very successful in media and communication. Where you haven't been successful is politically. You haven't been able to get into city government. I don't say that as a disrespect to you, but that's just been the area where you haven't had the success rate that you've had with
I'm not willing to play by the rules of the game.
Okay. All right.
I'm an outlier. If you play by the rules, you can be a member of the club. But you're not going to be a member of the club if you come in there and start throwing paint around.
Right. You can't sell out your community for a person, for a position.
No. I'm not selling out my community for a ham. Now, if you just do this, we'll get you a ham for you and your whole family.
Yeah.
You've been eating the feet. But we get you a ham, you eat high on the hog. Maybe we line you up with a couple of this and a couple of that, and your community needs someone that's going to tell them what we want them to do. It may as well be you.
Right.
That's not me. I'm not going to be that guy.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the political structure is very important too, and the economics, the media is important, the public safety. That 5-bridge plan that Dr. Claude Anderson outlined is very unique. It just hasn't really been implemented, and that's a big problem. Like again, people that's in the system, if you're part of a company and you're being the beneficiary of the company, you feel very optimistic about things because you're getting some benefits. You're working for a particular company, you're productive in this company, it gives you some sense of fulfillment to go along with finance. You feel a different overall state of mind. But a group of people that's on the outside, taking the leftovers and surviving, their vision towards the big picture may not feel so optimistic. You're treated as an employee, as a dime a dozen. And I do understand as an employee you work for a company, so you have to go by rules. But
everybody works for somebody.
Right. But if you're working, I would have to believe the people that's working for WTIC 1080 AM feel very good about their career or their occupation. You're the number one radio.
I think you would like to believe that.
You like to believe that?
But it's just a job, Jonathan.
Right. A job that helps in many areas of
right, but
income.
They're regular people just like everyone else. They got trials, tribulations, family issues, work issues, and they want to raise this contract. I got a low end of the contract. We don't need you anymore. We're going to replace you with audio. And format change at the station. It's going to go from all news to music. They have trials, tribulations, just like every single other individual on the planet. This just
yeah, well, Sleeping from hand to mouth, you may have trials and tribulations. I understand anything in life could happen, so I don't want to say people. Right,
and you don't know what they do or who they are off camera and off mic.
Right.
They're just regular people, and
But
don't get caught up in the celebrity.
But you did mention the people and the churches. They are like-minded people, and they have a common belief in God and Christ. And they're unified, and at least in the congregation, and they can work towards a common goal in many aspects that you can't see in the society. You can't see outside on Blue Hills Avenue and Burnham Street. You can't see Barber Street, Unity Plaza. You don't see the development stage in Unity Plaza on Barber Street that you see the First Cathedral has been able to do out in Bloomfield.
They're two different
things.
Totally different.
Right. But who's to say? But again, whatever the problems Howard K. Hill is having, why he can't get that area developed and turned around, it's who knows. But that's the problem with inner cities. I know we have rural America where you have no industry, you have nothing but people just, living off of a mom and pop, diner someplace. So I don't want to stereotype all in the cities separate from rural America. But you come back, you take somebody that left, let's say Barber Street 20 to 25 years ago, never came back to the city. He comes back now and looks at the place the way it looks today. It's probably more on a decline than it has been when he left 20 to 25 years ago.
No doubt.
But
that could be said of many cities and many neighborhoods in several places.
But what is that really saying then?
It doesn't say anything.
Oh, I think it says a lot.
Community change, that's all.
But it changes for the worse. So
Jonathan, I
think that speaks volumes.
And it changed. It changed. It changed. People that were successful in the community left.
Right.
And the replacement wasn't the same. And so the mall that was there, the shopping center, all the proprietors left. Mm-hmm. No one came to take over those businesses. So then it went into foreclosure, and then it deteriorated. And then something else left because somebody got old and died or retired. These things happen unless there's a concerted effort to prevent them from happening. And communities that are successful, that are self-sustaining, self-educating, self-policing, are concerned about the welfare of the community always.
Right.
Not after it gets into crisis. It's too late.
Yeah. When it gets in the crisis.
Yeah, the engine's light is on and the car is smoking and the engine seizes because you didn't put oil in it.
Right.
It's too late.
Yeah.
You should have been taking care of the car. Well, I didn't have the money. Well, now all the money in the world ain't going to fix your engine. It's seized.
You got a blown engine.
Blown engine. It's done.
Yeah.
If communities that are sustainable and long-lasting have those elements that are constantly there. So if you let your elected officials decimate your school by splitting up the school, which is at the center of the community, it's not going to be long before the people who were pulled together and had common shared experiences as a result of the school start to separate.
Right.
Every action has a reaction. People were warned about about this inevitable end a long time before it happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's too late to be all up in arms now. And this is why I always say, you have the government you deserve because you voted for them or you didn't vote.
Right.
It's not personal. If you don't get engaged before stuff happens, stuff happens.
But as you said, solid communities don't wait before there's a crisis to be involved and to be engaged and to do things. Like you say, you don't put simple things as getting an oil change and putting oil in your car, and you don't do that. And then all of a sudden now, after a while, you got a blown engine because you didn't maintain your vehicle. Something as simple as that could be very replicable of what you see at Unity Plaza. After a while, it wasn't replaced. Right. I mean, there's a burger pizza land there. There's a laundromat that's there. There's a family, some type of Dollar General store that's there. There might be a Chinese restaurant that's there. And there's the daycare center is a good asset though, but that used to be a bank. So you don't have a bank. You don't
right.
have the old CRT satellite office that left after Society Savings Bank left. The post office, I don't believe the post office is even up at Unity Plaza
So this is
anymore.
a sign that the community is in decay. So how do you turn that community around?
Yeah.
And it's going to take more than one person with a vision. The one person with a vision is enough if they can connect to the resources and the political will to make the changes that are necessary. Mm-hmm. On I-84, there's the big buildings finally in the paper now on the front page of the Current with the graffiti all over it.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Well, there's been fires in the building. The water is in the building. Mold is in the building. The building's going to have to be taken down. Mm-hmm. The state put $6 billion in the building at one time trying to fix it up, and then it got into decline, sold it for $1 million. That little plaza down there, over there off of Park Street, is always on the border of collapsing.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you don't have good governance that is there for the overall good of the community, not an opportunity for some individual to come in and make a profit off of some exchange or transaction, but for the community good, then the community will not prosper.
Right.
And it's up to the community to be engaged and aware. Mm-hmm. Because the savior of the community usually gets nailed to a cross. Never forget that.
Right, exactly.
All right. Never forget that. Mm. If you can't feed the people, they'll get mad at you and nail you to a cross. Mm. That's always something people need to remember.
Yeah. Well, this was an interesting conversation, Stan. A little bit different, a little extended time. I appreciate that. And let me work on trying to get a guest that's going to be here next week. Mm-hmm. I had a guest up until yesterday, so I got to definitely make sure this doesn't be a trend now.
Well, 3 strikes, you're out. Bring him back next week.
Yeah, I got to think about that. I mean, I have no guests lined up for next week.
Well, so, what you sent me gave me the impression that he might be available next week.
Might be next week, yeah. But I got to talk to the staff and make sure. Because I was under the impression that today was a definite. This caught me off guard.
Well, he had emergency surgery.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I still got to talk to these people. I mean, I appreciate the email.
He could need to have an appendectomy or something. So
always give people the benefit of the doubt.
Right. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy's making up. I'm impressed with the fact that he's coming here. Mm-hmm. He doesn't seem like he has to make up excuses not to come. He could just tell you straight out, I ain't coming.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, if he had emergency surgery, I mean, I wish him.
Give him a little break.
I will, yeah. I will.
Give him a little break.
I will, definitely.
Jonathan's a hard dude, boy.
Well, no, this is the second time, but I don't want to really bring the person down. Like I said, hopefully the person is doing well. I mean, that's the most important thing. Yeah. Do that. But good show, man. I mean, good information. I thought was addressed. And,
I hope so.
And you gave me some things to definitely think about and look into. When I see things in the hood or the inner city, I could have a little slightly better understanding for what you was telling me and people out there today. You know, once the engine blows, it's tough.
You can't squeeze oil in the seized engine. All right, well, let's let the maestro, Jay Hogarth, take us out. Y'all have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Toe Dance with the Baby. That's the name of the song.